Welcome back to our Judges in the Community interview series. My name is Caroline, a current BGI research apprentice. In today's installment, we have the honor of sitting down with Chief Judge Landia McCafferty of the District of New Hampshire, who would like to share her efforts in naturalization ceremonies, as well as her dynamic and impactful programs that allow middle school and high school students to get first-hand view of our system of justice. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm good, thanks.
That's good to hear that. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. And before we jump into your amazing programs, would you mind telling us a little bit about who you are, where you sit, and your judicial history?
Sure. I am the Chief Judge of the Federal District Court in New Hampshire. There's only one federal court in New Hampshire. There are 3 active judges that sit on this court, and we have 2 senior judges as well, and 2 magistrate judges. I have been a district judge since very, very beginning of 2014. I was nominated by President Obama. I was a magistrate judge prior to that in this court for about 3 years. And prior to that, I was primarily a public defender, trial lawyer. I also served for the state of New Hampshire as bar counsel or disciplinary counsel, and prosecuted attorneys who committed ethical misconduct. Did that about 7 years. So primarily trial lawyer, public defender, and then became mag judge, and now chief judge.
Oh, wow, that's such an amazing journey. And thank you so much for sharing that. And it's also very nice to meet you. And I've heard that you're leading like a couple of interesting programs that involve middle school and high school students. And I'm so excited to learn about them. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the programs?
Sure, I'm thrilled to. I have basically 3 major civics programs that I run out of the courthouse. And I started these back in 2015, 2016, started designing them around our naturalization ceremonies. We have one of these per month at our court. They're very moving. And I just thought it would be a wonderful way for the court to do outreach and also civics. So I designed a program around a naturalization ceremony where I'll call this the 8th grade program. And then I'll tell you about the high school program. So the 8th grade program starts with the ceremony at 9 a.m. sharp in the courtroom. The kids participate in that ceremony. They write a letter of welcome to the new citizens. We have a letter writing contest before the ceremony. They do all kinds of activities to get ready. So they start the day at the court with naturalization. They watch that ceremony, and then they do 2 major mock courtroom exercises. One is based on Tinker v. Des Moines. It's a First Amendment case. They do a mock appellate argument. And the other is a criminal case, and it is something I made up, and it is a criminal trial. We have them role play. They read the script, and then they act as a jury, an actual jury. They go deliberate while I stay with the other 40 or so students in the courtroom, and we deliberate as a group. And throughout the day, we're reaching back to the naturalization ceremony and the reasons why the new citizens are so thrilled to become Americans. And they're hoping to have all these rights that the kids are going to be learning about. So we are talking about that as we go through the day. So Tinker is one of them. The criminal mock trial is another. And then we also have a exercise that my excellent probation department came up with, which is a Snapchat bullying scenario that two probation officers come down and do with the kids. They're all at separate small groups throughout the room, and they're talking and trying to figure out how to handle a Snapchat bullying hypothetical and scenario. And they learn about probation officers, and so that's essentially the 8th grade day at the court. So related to that, I have taken naturalization ceremonies to high schools and other venues. I haven't done the football, baseball venue. I know that happens across the country. I find a high school and an auditorium more dignified. And so I've been very comfortable doing it in high schools. And so the beauty of it is that the new citizens are in the auditorium, all the students surrounding them, watching the ceremony. It's an official court ceremony. Oftentimes I'm able to talk one of my colleagues on the state bench to come over and sit with me so that they can see the federal state relationship. And then after the naturalization ceremony, I'll stay after and visit the social studies classes and talk to the kids. What happens is that the students get heavily involved in the ceremony ahead of time. They provide the music, they do speeches. We have frankly, all the politicians, local politicians, want to come to these events. And so they come, and the superintendent of schools and the local selectmen will often come. And it ends up being a wonderful community event. And I think is a really good opportunity for judges to get out in the community and let the community and the kids see these unbelievably moving naturalization ceremonies. I did one at the State House, the New Hampshire State House, a few years ago. And the State House is massive. We had 5 middle schools from Manchester, which is a very diverse and our largest city. 5 middle schools come to the State House, and they got to watch the whole thing. One of the schools provided music. One of the kids read a letter about her parents coming to the country, and it was very moving. And I presided over the ceremony with a judge on the New Hampshire Supreme Court. The governor was there, the Speaker of the House was there, the President of the Senate was there, and everybody loved it, whether you are a red politician or a blue politician. It doesn't matter. Everybody loves these ceremonies. And we had, I think, 19 naturalized citizens serving in our State House at the time as representatives. And so I had them stand up, and we announced which country they were from, so the kids could see that even in the State House we have naturalized citizens who represent us. Anyway, very successful. I have a great partnership with our immigration services in New Hampshire, and they love these. They love doing them. We take them across the state, so they're not just located here in Concord at the court. And so that ends up being a great thing for them as well. They've enjoyed doing it on the road, if you will. And then the third major program that I do is a program I borrowed really from the brilliant Rebecca Fanning, who is the person who runs really civic outreach for judges nationally. And she was with me right from the start, because as I was brainstorming all this stuff, she said, well, on our website, you'll find You Be the Judge scenarios and things that you can just pick up and run with. So anyway, I looked at the website, and the idea was that you have a mock sentencing hearing for kids, and you give them a set of facts that teaches them, how difficult and challenging sentencing a criminal defendant can be. Now, this is more appropriate for a high school age, and so these are high schoolers who come to the court for this. I probably do 2 or 3 of these a month. They I came up with a sentencing scenario that I find works very well, and it involves a bank robber who is a first-time offender, no prior criminal history, massive drug addiction. So ultimately, very serious offense, but
Mhm.
also very compelling mitigating facts in the case. So they have to weigh how best to handle all the goals of sentencing with something like that. So
Mhm.
in any event, I spend about 45 minutes teaching them the basics of sentencing. It's not rocket science, really, the big principles. I use a hypothetical dean of students scenario, a fight in a classroom at a high school, and I put them in the shoes of the dean of students or whoever has to discipline the kids. And then we go through all the thought process. Why would you want to expel this student? Why might you suspend the student? What would cause you to sentence or discipline them more harshly? And we get out basically the goals of sentencing. And I explain to them that it's not that different. And then we talk about the sentencing guidelines. And of course, those are complicated, but ultimately, I tell them I'm going to give them the basics and give them the guidelines. So I do the hypothetical, it's based on a real case. Names are changed. I divide them up into prosecutors, defense attorneys, and then I take about 6 or 7 with me as judges. They're going to deliberate with me during the sentencing hearing and ask questions of the lawyers as well. And so I have 2 coaches. And so one coaches prosecutors, one coaches the defense, and gets them up ready to stand on their feet and make their arguments. They get a sheet of paper that gives them the guideline range. They understand that's a starting point, and then they stand up and make whatever argument they want to make with respect to the sentence. It's a challenging but very good hypothetical sentencing scenario, and it really is based on Rebecca Fanning's idea. And it works great. I mean, anybody could do this. It's fun. The kids love it. Um, and so those are the 3 main programs that I run. I do Zoom visits in classrooms whenever I can. I did a ton of Zoom during COVID. Now it's just to reach some of those schools way up north who can't travel to the Capitol to visit our courthouse. I will get on a Zoom. Sometimes I'll get attorneys to come with me so we can coach them and put them in breakout rooms so they can come back out and argue as prosecutors and defense lawyers. And then I visit high schools whenever I can. I'm visiting one. I just made plans this morning. And I do the same kind of thing, just take their questions, what it's like to be a judge, but then I start engaging with them on, a hypothetical sentencing and divide them up and let them role play. And it's been successful. I'm not great at the PR piece of it, uh, but I love the teaching aspect, and I was a teacher in my prior life, so.
Wow, definitely. I guess that's definitely going to be like a really valuable experience for those high school and middle school students who are involved in the project. And it's also so happy to see like so many things are being done to like make the legal system more approachable and also educational for the younger generation. And it's also so impressive that you were able to do so much work outside of your normal, job as a judge. And that's just so amazing. I can't imagine how am I gonna balance that. And yeah, that just makes me genuinely curious about what really got you into these like wonderful projects in the first place.
Really, it was just, I think it might have been in 2015. I was concerned about some of what I was reading about in terms of the lack of basic civics knowledge in adults and children. I was concerned about the anti-immigrant rhetoric. And as a judge, there's not a lot you can really do about that. But I certainly knew that I could run some sort of educational civics program try to do my part. And these naturalization ceremonies, despite some of the anti-immigrant rhetoric that you hear in our politics, in a naturalization ceremony there is just not one person in the room who is not thrilled to be there and proud to be an American and support these new citizens. So
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely feel like how the naturalization ceremony is so important for for those like new citizens, especially when they're new to the land and like new to the culture and everything. And yeah, I'm just wondering like how does like these experiences of like involving in these programs influence like you as an individual? And like are there like specific aspects that really like hit home for you?
that's a good question. I was a teacher in my prior life, so I love teaching, and I enjoy interacting with the students. And I think when I hear about a student who was inspired by one of my programs to go into a field like law, or to work for a court or become a police officer, that kind of thing is really touching. Um, but obviously teachers, I have these nice relationships with teachers in the state of New Hampshire, and I love being able to help them. They know what they can call me if there's some issue where they need a judge in their classroom for something, and I will show up and help them out with that. Or they just want somebody to talk to a particular student. I've had all kinds of outreach with individual students as a result of this program. Um, I wish I did PR better, because really, once the teachers come, I have a big group of eighth graders tomorrow. Once they get here, and this particular group are two schools combined, I have not met these two teachers. They heard about the program somehow. Um, Once they come, they'll probably want to come every year. And I wish that I had a way of getting out to all the teachers so they knew that this was available and that I would put them on a list and try to get them in here. Our Concord High School teacher teaches street law, and she is very committed to getting the kids here for that "you be the judge" sentencing scenario. And so it's really, I think she brings over 4 sets of 50 kids. So ultimately, I just wish I could expose more schools, and I were better at the sort of PR piece of it, just to have more kids have an opportunity. So, but I'm doing what I can do. And that the PR piece is the piece that I'm not as particularly talented at.
Yeah, totally. I guess like this interview will definitely get more people to like know of this project and also like as well as the high schools that you were just mentioned and getting more like students involved in this wonderful project. And yeah, and so from their perspective, from the students who are participating in the program, what kind of impact do you think will have on their lives and how would it like inspire them in one way or another?
Well, I hope that they are able to get a sense of a courtroom, get a sense of the life of a judge, and have an appreciation for the Constitution. Um, the naturalization ceremony as the beginning of the day, I think, sets the tone for them to really think about what they take for granted. All of the rights they take for granted, and they see these new citizens, and the wide variety of countries they're coming from, and the reasons that they're coming. So I hope that they leave inspired and a little bit fired up about the Constitution. I think the Tinker case is a great one for kids in eighth grade. They learn that they have a First Amendment right. It's very limited in a school, and that's something they learn very clearly because they understand the facts of Tinker and the reasons why those kids actually won that case, because the kids were completely polite, courteous, not disruptive. And so they understand when they go back to school, they do have this right so long as they exercise it in a way that is courteous and is not disruptive in the school. But it gets them excited and gets them excited about the Constitution in a way that maybe they hadn't thought of it before. So my hope is that they just leave and they remember the day and remember their experience. And my hope is that some of them will even leave and become lawyers and come back to New Hampshire. I always tell them, hopefully I'll be here. If I am, come back and look for me. I'd love to see you again. So
Yeah, totally. I guess this is definitely going to be like a really memorable experience in their life, even though probably they're not going to like remember like the details of the case. But I mean, like the first hands-on experience on like sentencing and like understanding like the rationale behind it is definitely like really important. And also like for them to like learn about their rights and like just as you said, never taking that for granted and understanding that even for like having some of the basic rights is kind of privileged compared to like some of the other people. And yeah, and definitely wish that I could be a part of the program if I was a high school student. And yeah, so to kind of have like more like high school and middle school students involved like in such an incredible program. So for folks who are thinking about diving into similar projects, what kind of tips or advice would you give them based on your journey with this initiative?
are you asking from the perspective of judges who might want to do these programs?
Yeah,
Or are you talking from the perspective of a teacher who is thinking about trying to find a court that has these programs?
I guess from the judges who are trying to like start
Okay.
such a program.
Yes, I would say, first of all, Rebecca Fanning would be somebody they want to call, email. You can find her email address on the JNet. And Rebecca Fanning also gave me her one sheet, get up to speed in like 30 minutes, less than that, to do one of these, you be the judge kind of things. She actually let me post that to our New Hampshire bar so that New Hampshire lawyers could actually use these to try to go into more high schools. So I'm working with the New Hampshire bar as well to try to get more lawyers in general going in to classrooms. Um, it's harder for judges to go in and just use some sort of hypothetical that they might ask you about because you are not permitted as a judge to talk about anything political, something that might come before you even. So what I always advise judges to do is to rely on a real case. If you're going to go in and do a mock argument, do one based on a case that would get the kids excited. And then that way, as a judge, we don't have any ethical issues. But if you try, I think a lawyer could much more easily go in and do some sort of hypothetical modern day hot button issue and divide the kids up and have them argue a case. So with judges, I would just say that if you're a federal judge, even a state judge, Rebecca Fanning is a great resource. And I'm certainly willing to talk to judges about naturalization ceremonies in high schools. And I'm also happy to share my scenarios that I've developed. They would work in a state court too. State court would have, this same basic facts. You give them you wouldn't have federal guidelines, but you would have your state guidelines to the extent you have them, and you'd have your state statutes. So it's really would be the same. And to the extent, I would love to see more federal judges taking naturalization ceremonies into high schools and asking their state brethren to preside with them and then stay at the school after and talk to the kids about the Constitution. And there are all kinds of things on Rebecca Fanning's website where they can just go and they'll come up with one idea. You're in there for 50 minutes and maybe an hour and 15 it goes by very quickly. So you just need one scenario that you can get the kids role playing with, and they love it. So
Yeah, totally. I mean, those are really like practical advice for people who are trying to do the same thing. And probably I should post Judge Fanning's website link like right here for you can click on this.
Rebecca Fanning,
To her.
right?
Yeah, just please reach out to her. Yeah, something like that. And thank you so much for sharing all your insights and experiences about your programs. And it's also been enlightening to like just listen about like the positive impacts it's making on like on the students and also like maybe even on the community as a whole. And yeah, and I really also appreciate your passion and like dedication for like creating such like a meaningful connection between the legal system as well as the high school and middle school kids. And yeah, and I guess we really appreciate your time today. And yeah, and we look forward to see the continued magic and success of your amazing programs. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
well, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.